Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligus, your host. In this edition, high school sports, which are a place where dreams are born and often the heartbeat of a small town. They are the focus of VYPE media magazines. Today, we meet the man behind their production, from photographs that capture athletes in action to personal profiles and team rankings, all skewed for your particular community. Our guest today is Michael David Cooper, whose resume includes entrepreneur, franchisee, CEO, product developer, television production manager, and equally important to us, an alumnus of Missouri Southern State University. Welcome, Mike. We are so glad to have you here.
Yeah,
so before
absolutely.
we get deep into the business of your magazine,
Sure.
Let's go back to where it all started, here at Missouri Southern.
Yeah.
You even worked here at our TV station.
Yeah, I think I was part of the group that started this TV station.
Which is pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing,
We're talking
yeah.
back in 1982.
82
is when you were here, and 84 the station started?
82 through 86 is when I was here. So
Wow.
yeah. And I was working at KSN my senior year in high school. So they had a student that was here that was pretty in the know on TV production. So I was kind of involved really closely with Ray Balhorn and Richard Massa back in the day to kind of get this thing, off the ground.
Yeah. So was that a good training ground for you early in your career to be immersed in TV?
Sure. It was, being at KSN my senior year in high school and then coming directly to here and then them starting MSTV back in the day, just 2 years later. I got double training from both those because I was working 40 hours a week at KSN. And then was, probably taking 15, 18 hours, a semester here. So I was pretty busy. I was pretty immersed in TV. And then on the side, I ran sound for a band back in the day on Thursdays and Fridays, Saturday night at an old bar called Shenanigans, which only people my age will remember that one.
That is it,
but I was very immersed in TV for 5 or 6 years while I was going to school.
And then you did that for a career. I mean, you spent decades in TV production.
Absolutely, yep.
So tell us a little about that and why make the move to magazines and why a high school sports magazine?
I'll try to make this story as short as possible, but
No, you don't have to be short. We've got time.
I was going to go to MU because I wanted to be a sports writer. That was my thing. But, my senior year in college, when you get a 40-hour-a-week job at a local TV station that was actually paying, pretty well, because I was just a production assistant when I started. Yeah. So, I started doing things like, back then we called it character generation. Now it's, Chiron, those things. And maybe that's not even the word anymore. But then moved up to short time on camera. And I was pretty good at it, I guess, because before I graduated Southern, I was directing. So I was doing the 6 and 10 o'clock news. Started in the morning, was doing the morning noon, then went noon to 4, back when KSN was doing 4 o'clocks. And so by the time I graduated from Southern, I was the 6 and 10 o'clock director here. And when I graduated, they wanted me to go to Wichita. So KSNW, which at one point, all the same group, KSNW and KSNF, brought me up there, and I directed for several years again, but also expanded what I did a little bit into something that I was really interested in. I would, back in the day before ESPN and some of these guys controlled sports, there was a little network called Raycom Network, and they did KU and K-State football and basketball. So I directed and technical directed some of those games for TV, which I really loved doing that. Yeah. But if you want that to be your career, if you want to, if I wanted to be an NFL director or even a technical director, those guys are on the road, 300 days a year. And I met somebody in Wichita. My wife played basketball for Wichita State. And so I met her when I was working for KSN there. And, her career was kind of one that was going to keep her in Wichita for the most part. And I just didn't want to be on the road that much. So I just switched to management, went into production management.
You were diversifying.
I did. And I kind of thought, well, okay, I'll go on a path to be a general manager.
Sure.
So I did production management, but while I was as a production manager, one of the things we kind of figured out in our market was corporate education was becoming a big thing. Corporate training, corporate sales training, all that stuff. And there really wasn't anybody in the Wichita market doing it, especially doing it with newer equipment.
Okay.
So we opened up a wing at KSN called Channel 3 Productions. And we were the first to bring in, I don't even know if these are a thing anymore, avid media composers. Sure. And we brought in Betacam, SP, all that old. But at that time, that was the top of the line equipment. And so we picked up all the corporate training for Pizza Hut, Rent-A-Center, Cessna Aircraft. So we had these big, giant corporate training. And at the same time, we were still taking care of all the TV's needs. Say, for example, if they needed TV commercials done or if they needed production done. So I oversaw all of that for years, and really just thought I was at some point make the transition to GM. But then, the mid 90s hit and TV changed completely. Yeah. Where general managers at TV stations used to come from news and operations. Because the pie got so much splintered, all of a sudden I said, look, the most important thing we do is sell.
Sales, yeah.
And so all the new GMs were coming from sales. And so and then while I was at KSN, we were sold 6 times, to 6 different owners. And each time we were sold to a new owner, it was a bigger corporation, a bigger corporate group. And so the last group that bought us came and talked to me, because at that time, I was vice president of operations production for all the KSN stations. So Wichita, Garden City, Great Bend, and McCook, Nebraska. We had sold off Topeka and Joplin. Okay. So I didn't do that for them. And they just said, if you want to be a general manager, we need you to do at least 2 to 4 years in TV sales. And I just had no desire to do that at all.
And you had a love of sports.
I did.
Somehow had to get back into the picture.
But probably one of my best friends, and I'm still in communication with him for people who've been around a long time, is Steve Dennis, Clark Schaefer, all those old sports guys that used to be on the air here. Those were the guys I directed. So and then again, my wife played, my daughter played college ball. Yeah. So sports has kind of been a thing. So when that happened, one of my clients at KSN, at Channel 3 Productions, was a new entrepreneurial company in Wichita called Knowledge Communication. And they were doing corporate training on CD-ROM. They kind of expanded from videotape, which is what we were. And they needed our green screen studios because all their stuff was computer generated.
Sure.
And literally about the time I got this ultimatum either to become in sales or move on, I got a job offer to be the operations manager. Same thing I was doing in Kansas, in New Mexico for a group of stations in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I thought serious about taking it, but this little entrepreneurial company that I had, we moved them into the basement of our TV station because they were, and because they were doing so well. Well, they ended up selling. This kid was, I think he's 22, 23 years old. So he sells his company for, I think, $16, $17 million back in the day, back when that was the thing, where people were paying a lot for technology because they had some patented technology. Sure. And he said, do you want to come and run this? Because I don't run stuff. I'm an entrepreneur. So I left TV and went and basically went from KCI. We were merged into a company called National Education and Training Group. We basically were doing global corporate communication on CD-ROM, and all of our titles were what we called soft skills. So training, or coaching, teamwork, interviewing skills, those kind of things, and everything was based on a person like you and me in front of this green screen. So I did that for a few years, but just I got a bug to do my own thing because this was all corporate, very corporate.
Right.
And I went franchise shopping, not expecting to know what I would find.
And you found a magazine.
And I found a magazine.
You found this.
And I found that. And that's how a TV electronic media guy got to print.
Okay.
So that's kind of the story of how we got there.
So how do you make this magazine? I mean, because it's for a certain community, it has profiles. So what's the process and how big of a staff do you have?
It's a great question. Our original magazine, the original concept behind the entire company was just print. So we started in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is covered by 8 different magazines They cover the entire state.
Sure.
I was their second franchisee to buy into Kansas. And so the magazine was the thing. And so when you buy a franchise, it's like a business in a box. So it's like buying a McDonald's. So they tell you how many pages, what the weight of the pages are, and they tell you what your staff is. And that was the model I bought into. What we found out was not even in my market, but in several other markets that had bought the franchise after me, even the guy who bought the Indianapolis franchise, which was the first one before me, is that what they did in Oklahoma was not recreatable. It was like a lightning in a bottle. And so the staffing levels and all that were a little too big. The magazine was a little too big. And so we kind of went from a franchise model to more of a licensing model. And that gave us all more of our own ability to do what we wanted.
So someone's to pick up the magazine, what would they see?
What we have done with high school sports is a little different than what you normally see with high school athletics. Most high school athletics cover last night's game, preview tonight's game, scores, stats, rosters. We don't really do that. The reason we don't do that is because a lot of organizations and media outlets that did that just couldn't make it work. I mean, if you look at local newspapers now.
I was just going to say that. You're doing this at a time where local newspapers are struggling, folding. Why are people more inclined to read this?
And here, the reason is what the local newspapers were doing, the local TV stations, local radio stations, they were trying to do their best to cover last night's game. Back newspapers used to do box scores. You know, they don't do box scores anymore. The thing was, back in the day, TV and radio and print made so much money on their core business, like with newspapers, classifieds, auto dealers, that they didn't have to have money to support their sports operation because it was running just fine on the money they were making on the other side. Well, that all changed. And so that's why a lot of that was dropped. The other thing was that there were so many outlets doing that kind of coverage. From an advertising and marketing perspective, there was no uniqueness, no exclusivity. So what we jumped on with our magazine and now our online product is we do profile. We do player profiles. We don't do scores. We don't do stats. We do a little bit of rankings. You mentioned that. We don't preview tonight's game. We don't recap last night's game. Everything we do is a story about a player, a coach, a parent, somebody involved in high school athletics. And not necessarily for their athletic ability. We cover kids for good grades, community service, moms who dedicate time to the school, coaches who excel in this classroom. What we've been able to find with that model is we can find sponsors who will support that.
It's knowing more than what you see on the field.
Absolutely. That's one of our sayings. We want to tell you what kids are doing on and off the field. And so if you're a business and you want to support an academic athlete of the month, you know, that's not like supporting just general high school athletics. You know, we're picking kids based on their athletic or other academics, not their athletics. Not that we don't cover the best athletes in the market, because we do.
But it's always about them.
But when we do, it's always about them.
Everybody sees the best athletes.
They don't really need our exposure. And most of them do have another story to tell.
Sure.
And so, you know, a lot of them do have good grades. They do community service.
They're all around overachievers.
They do other things.
Yeah.
And so we cover all that. And that's really what has made us kind of successful in a time where a lot of people that are doing what we do have not been able to make it.
All right, well, it does take advertisers.
Absolutely.
And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we will talk with one advertiser from State Farm when we return. back to Newsmakers, where we're talking about VYPE Media high school sports magazines, putting a town's top players or teams on the front page and inside. We're back with Mike Cooper, franchisee, and joining our conversation is Walfrey Hernandez, who works with State Farm Insurance. Welcome, Walfrey and Mike.
Thank you for having us.
So these magazines are pretty slick with color photos, but they are free to the public, which sounds kind of crazy. So how is that possible, Mike?
Because of people like him.
Advertisers.
I originally signed the contract with Kyle Hickam. It's his agency with State Farm. And I actually went to school with Kyle in Webb City and know him quite well. But he had some big State Farm thing to do today, so you got to stand in.
I got to fill in,
that.
yes.
But yeah, that is what we're doing now. Is we're building more of an advertiser base so that we can cover more of the athletes.
So when a profile story's done, you're going to see some kind of advertisement wrapped around that somewhere near it.
Everything, yeah. So basically, what you'll see either in the magazine or online is you'll basically click to the link to this story. You'll see a headline, and it will say presented by Kyle Hickam State Farm. It's this person is the State Farm Athlete of the Month. You'll click to that, and then you'll see a photo of the athlete, and then the editorial, and within the editorial, the advertising element for the advertiser in this case, State Farm. So.
Yeah. So Walfrey, why is a magazine like this a good option for a business when it comes to even just getting your name out there?
I think visibility-wise, like you talked about, is showcasing the athlete that has a good example, for the community, for other athletes out there, for other students, young kids. It is a good way to get your name out there and be visible to people that are interested in, supporting a community.
And in your case, it's a State Farm office in Webb City, which we all know Webb City has super fan base and is super supportive of sports. So does that seem to be a good marriage?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it follows a good pattern that we have supporting a community and supporting sports.
Does it give you more bang for your buck knowing that there's an online option? I mean, because, magazines are one thing, you get it, but do you kind of lose it or toss it aside?
I certainly think so. I mean, magazines, if you have printed, you'll have it locally, but being online, anyone can access it, anyone in the nation. So, and we get to see that the sponsor that is sponsoring the athlete, they'll get to see it.
Well, and also then you might even have relatives of the kids. I know we have that here at the TV station. Somebody saw one of our programs if it's a student, and they may have family in another state. So do you feel like that can also add to your exposure? I
think so, yeah. I mean, being licensed in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, we'd be able to reach that type of clientele as well.
So you feel like this can be a good investment? Do customers come in looking for these magazines? Do you get to have the magazines on site?
Yeah. We have a couple, and they'll be available for the customers. So it'd be like you said, a physical copy is also good, but having that internet visibility is really the best thing that we think of it.
Yeah. So Mike, tell us how do you pitch this when you're going out and trying to sell the magazine to folks or to get the advertisers on board? I mean, one of the things like the banner on a website might be a place for their name to show.
Sure. One of the things that we hit on that's really important is what we can do with digital that we can't do with the print, which was we can geo-target. So like all of their ads, we're geo-targeting Webb City and the Southwest Missouri footprint for our online, because right now the online is the front end. It's what we've started so far, and the magazine is coming.
Right, you've been in Kansas, but you're moving into Southwest Missouri.
But we launched the websites in the fall of last year, so the magazine will launch, we think, this fall. That's our plan.
So what are the different communities you're serving in Southwest Missouri? A lot.
There's 22 schools in Southwest Missouri. So if you think about this southwest corner, it's Joplin, Webb, Parsons,
Newton
Lamar,
County.
Newton, all the Carl Junction,
Diamond,
Neosho,
all that.
Carthage, all that schools. Because what we try to do with our magazine and with the online is we want to be hyper local, because one of the things we have with our magazines, they're regional, and so we have to find regional advertisers for that. But when we go into like a market like Web City, where we have another website that's just Web City, then we can go get just advertisers who want to be in that city. Now with State Farm, they do the regional part too. But what we offer the advertisers is that opportunity to be super hyper local in the way that we channel the digital advertising to their audience. And we use Facebook and all their gimmicks and games, and we pay them to make sure that our posts get higher ratings than most people, because most people don't pay them to increase their posts, but we do. And so I think what Walfrey was talking about earlier in terms of the exposure, one of the things that's a little bit different about us is that we love promoting our content. We are passionate about student athletes and their families. But one of the things I think is a little different is what's very important to us is our advertisers. So I want my advertisers to judge us not on how great we are for them for PR and community awareness and how good we are for the school. I want them to be able to say, hey, you guys, and I just send him a report this morning, you guys sent almost 300 people directly to my website. I can't really do that with the print. The print gives me a great branding opportunity and a great exposure, and it's something people can hold in their hand, and they can hand to grandma, they can hand to grandpa, they can hand to mom and dad, which is awesome because you can't really, digital's, well, you can say, hey, look over my shoulder. It's not the same thing, but what I can do is take that branding that we've done with the magazine and really channel it for our advertisers into their particular community, or if an advertiser is focused on a particular kind of athlete. Maybe we have sponsors that only do bowlers, only do tennis players, only do hunting and fishing. That's one of our biggest segments that we get sponsored everywhere, is a boy or girl that hunts and fishes. And that's a big thing in this part of the world. So we don't have any problem finding sponsors for that kind of thing, because we're very much pinpointing their target audience.
And that's great that you have that wide variety of athleticism, because typically when we think of these magazines, I mean, KWM had one for years called the Pigskin Preview, and it was all about the upcoming season. But then when that season happened, the interest they had some profiles, but it was also football, and they always wanted basketball. I mean, and you've got a wide variety of sports, which then can appeal to more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try to branch out to whatever our sponsor wants us to cover, So, maybe it has nothing to do with athletics, or maybe it is a certain type of athlete, tennis, golf, any of those channels, coaches. We even have some sponsors in Kansas that do what we call a behind the scenes athlete. So, kids who are student managers, kids who do debate, kids who we will cover them too. So, if a sponsor has a particular theme they want us to pursue, and it somehow ties into the high school athletic community, or athletic, maybe more activities community, then we certainly will try to get them highlighted. Because one of the things we know from all of our research of doing this for years, like you said earlier, the best athletes in the market get plenty of media coverage.
You bet.
Which means people can find out about them in several different places. When we do an Athlete of the Month for State Farm that is an academic athlete in Web City that plays tennis but is not a star tennis player, that athlete's getting recognition they don't get anywhere else. And when you put something online that's not available everywhere online, then it gets shared more. So if you're the parent of the kid who State Farm highlighted, oh my gosh, they're talking about my kid's academics and they also play tennis, then all of a sudden they're sharing it with their network, and then that network is sharing it. So the amount of traffic we get on non-elite sports stories is much higher than we get on those types of stories when we do them.
And Walfrey, that means your company's name is mentioned every time that's shared and goes out. So also, does it make you feel like your companies and your businesses are supporting the athletes as sort of part of that whole community? I mean, he talks about moms and parents. Does it make it also seem like you're also a supporter then?
I certainly think so. I mean, like I said earlier, in the type of business that we run at the Webb City State Farm for Kyle Hickam is supporting the community. You know, being there and you know, cheering for everyone, not just the athlete of the year. You know, the top scorer or anything. You know, everyone deserves that support. So having him do that kind of work, then you know, it aligns perfectly.
Excellent. So what's the goal now? So you're moving to having the print magazines all throughout Southwest Missouri, because you've already kind of tackled Kansas. What kind of success did you find there, and what did you think was key to your success there?
We have a Wichita magazine, a Salina magazine. We cover about 111 high schools with those. They're two separate magazines. Then in Southeast Kansas, Southwest Missouri, right now we've launched the online elements, which is both website and social media. And then we'll launch, I think we're trying to decide whether we're going to do a magazine for each market or just kind of combine. This is kind of a really unique market down here with the 4 states. So we may do them as one, we'll see. But, and then Oklahoma, you know, where this all started, we have 8 magazines in Oklahoma, and I think they're at 80 plus some localized websites.
Wow.
So we have grown into probably the largest, at least Midwest, exclusive high school sports network in the country. You know, our website already, the websites for Southwest Missouri and for Southeast Kansas, they're already over 1 million views. And we just launched them at the start of this school year. And we have advertisers, well, like you guys, that have already seen some hundreds. We have some that have seen thousands of trips to their website. So we're very happy with the success.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're a great PR community service vehicle, which would probably be successful on its own. But I think the piece we bring that is so much different is we're a really, really good advertising vehicle. You know, me coming up 40 years in media.
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound biased because I own because I own it. But it's one of the best local advertising venues that, especially now.
And I like how
that
you
come
call
across.
it hyper local,
It's
and we've
hyper-local.
had a sense of loss of local entities with the newspapers, and so I think people are searching for
sure.
local. They you know, they see enough national news, they can get that on their phone or on their cable or TV.
And these are stories they're just not seeing anywhere else. You know?
seeing it locally. Well, it's a great work that you're doing,
Thank
and
you.
we wish you luck on your productions. And
It's good to be back home.
Walfrey, thanks for coming and joining
course,
us.
thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. Thanks to our guests, and thank you for watching.